Keep your eyes open. All of them.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to keep it a beanbag with you. The Institute is definitely heating up with episode 3. They took some dark turns down the right roads. We're going to briefly go over some of the important scenes and decode some of the pots and pans so we can cook this meal. Let's stir up the sauce real quick. I want to thank all of you for watching the video, and if you're new to Real Enigmas and Theories, welcome. This video will contain spoilers for The Institute episode 3, just so you know. So without further ado, let's cook. So we start this joint off with Luke being escorted to the elevator and taken to level B. Tony walks him into the testing room with Hendrix and begins testing. It always jumps out to me how these covert operations always like to have so much branding. Like, why do you have your logos on your work clothes if your job is to kidnap and torture people? I don't get it. What is the branding purpose for? I mean, it's not even like you got a hard to draw logo or anything. Somebody gets out and they could draw that logo with no problem. And who is this branding for? Besides a way to identify who's doing these horrible things, who are you wanting to see this branding option? Anyway, Luke is injected with the green Jolly Rancher elixir and given a screen to look at. Luke starts to see the dots and Hendrix shuts down that part of the testing and moves on to something else. Luke's exhausted and he passes out before being woken back up and then made to guess objects on the other side of a card. He begs them to take him back to his room and isn't able to continue testing, so Tony shocks him with a cattle prod type device before taking him back to his room. That guy Tony is a real asshole. Actor Jason Diaz does a great job making you hate this character. I know that Luke and Nick are looking for a staff member that they can flip, so I don't think it's going to be Tony at all. I'm going with Maureen or Hendrix. Moving right along, we see Tim getting up for the night shift, and we get kind of a mirror shot of Luke waking up in the Institute. You know, this shot right here where he came to the window to reveal the light, but realized that he wasn't actually at home anymore. I thought that this was kind of dope because in From, Jack Bender also did a mirroring window scene with a mother and a daughter, and both of those scenes ended up being kind of important. He's wearing what looks like to be a St. Christopher pendant. You can see it looks like a man carrying a small child on his shoulder or his back. You can tell that he's in stride and you can see his robe going down to what looks like to be water. This is a real life pendant and it's worn for protection. Anyway, he heads over to the station and gears up for the evening, and he learns that his actions not only led to the arrest of the robbers from episode 2, but he also saved the life of the store owner. Officer Wendy tells him how Officer Drew is about to get the credit, but Tim doesn't seem to care and doesn't want to be cast into the spotlight. I like the chemistry of these characters. Every time they get a scene together, you can really tell that she's trying to fill Tim out and understand where he's coming from as a man. Now, back to Luke. And that session must have been real early because it seems that everyone's just now getting together for breakfast. They all chat with the new kid, Avery, and get a showcase of how talented he is. So we find out that Maureen reports back to Sigsbee and Stackhouse while Sigsbee gets ready to go for a keyhole to open, whatever that means. She meets up with Hendrix in the hallway with that extra bit of niceness to get on his good side and find out the information about Luke Ellis. Ellis is also the name of Boyd's son and From. She's aware of the secret talks with Stackhouse, but she already knows Hendrix in an intimate way and she can probably use that to her advantage. She's checked the security footage and knows that Stackhouse has already made a chess move. So Avery, Kalisha, and Luke are sitting in the dining room talking, and Kalisha has revealed that she's seen the dots in the dream box. They discuss the possibilities of this being her getting closer to going home, but then the conversation is interrupted by Avery hearing the resonance coming from the back half. Nick and George say that sometimes they can hear it coming from the back half, but this particular time it was stronger. Tim visits Annie during his rounds to find her playing a game of hopscotch with a missing 9 and 10, and we'll cover some of that in the esoteric breakdown. She's also heard the humming coming from the back half, and this is where we get an undeniable connection to Annie and whatever's going on at the Institute. She states that she doesn't take any medication, and the last day that she had a drink was February 1st, 2003, which is the day that the Space Shuttle Columbia disintegrated over Texas. Why that reference is in there, I don't know. She also mentions about someone being killed in a plane crash and being the result of someone using telepathy to confuse the pilot. So the kids hear a hum, Annie hears it too, and says she knows about a plane crash. And this is the type of information that we need to have a better understanding about what's going on in the Institute. I'd like to know how Annie ties into all of this, and I wonder if Tim's mother had these same abilities. When Tim first encounters Annie, she's knitting, which is invoking the grandmother spider deity. We saw this a lot in From with the dream catchers, the woven items, Elgin's grandmother knitting owls, and him teaching Tilly how to knit as well. Her behavior probably reminded Tim of his mother, and that's why Annie was able to see what his nickname was and why his mother gave him that nickname. Her reminding him of his mother probably put his mother in the front of his thoughts where Annie could see them. He asked Annie if she's seeing a doctor and suggests that she seek a pharmaceutical approach to soothe the resonance that she's being tapped into. And her reminding him of his mother is why he suggested that, because that's what his mother did. So Luke walks the halls with Avery on their way to the vending machine to grab a snack, and Avery displays some of his telepathic abilities by making Luke select licorice from the vending machine. This display of his ability is just the type of thing that could confuse a pilot and cause a crash. I'm not saying that he did it, but the capabilities that these children have seem to be what was used in that plane crash. And the way the story unfolds within the way that the scenes are strung out is perfect for this type of show. We get something slightly different from the novel, and we get to experience the canon in a fresh new way. Peep how all of this information rolls out right into the next scene where Tim is at the bar speaking with the woman who executed that snatch team operative in that hotel that they're staying in. She says her name is Kate the Great. And during their talk, Tim focuses his attention on a news report of a plane crash, which makes him think about the information that we just saw from Annie and Avery. He tells Kate about how Annie told him about the plane crash and telepathy, which is really not a good idea. Tim doesn't know it, but Kate isn't who she says she is. So Nick and Luke are still plotting on a way to escape. They have their super telepath with Avery. Now they just have to figure out the logistics. So Avery mentally hitches a ride onto a guard dog's site and discovers an older playground with a rusty fence that might be connected to the back half. As the boys talk about this new discovery, Kalisha stumbles outside after a strong session in the dream box. Then we go to the dining area where a party has been set up for Kalisha's move to the back half. Luke makes a move to single out Maureen. Kalisha is taken to the back half while Avery mentally monitors her as far as he can until she enters the back half. And we conclude the episode outside with Tim discovering the body of Annie in her tent. He sees the pills and a bottle of vodka, which I'm sure he knows that is part of a cover-up. Kalisha goes further into the back half, and Avery loses his connection with her while Miss Sigsbee watches Luke and Avery monitor Kalisha. Hey yo, rest in peace, Annie. And I'm wondering if Tim even put one and one together and realized that he's the reason why she's gone. I mean, this episode definitely took a dark turn from torturing Luke to our beloved Annie being taken out like that. What a horrible way for her to go. Miss Sigsbee is on some other stuff. Did you see how she was piercing her finger with that staple remover? Tony treats these kids like they did something wrong to him or something. And again, if this is such a covert situation, why all of the logo branding everywhere? I mean, they even have it on the key fobs. The pacing for this show is on point, and the information is being given to us at a generous rate without spoiling the feel to the show. The audience isn't that big yet, but this show is definitely a banger for sure. It's slept on real heavy. All of the continued dope symbolism, which we're going to discuss in the esoteric breakdown coming out after this video. And I can tell you that this one is going to be real deep. I feel like that scene where we saw Luke break down crying after that session with Hendrix was a turning point for him. It was just something about the way he snapped out of it and shook off his tears. It reminded me of his line in the first episode when he said, "What do you want me to do? Start crying and begging you to go home? We both know that won't do me any good." I think that Luke really knows now that he has to go all out against his captors. I know he's 14 years old, but it looks like he's really shedding the fear of this situation pretty fast, and he's starting to use his logic. He does have TK abilities, but I think his strengths will prove to be more with his intellect and planning. Coupled with his growing powers, Avery's power, and Nick's will and determination, I think the kids have a good shot, especially when you're up against a team that already has some issues with infighting and distrust. Annie being taken out like that, and Tim being the one that found her, and the cover up with the pills and the alcohol might be the push that Tim needs to open his eyes and his mind to what's really going on. Peep how Annie told him to keep his eyes open, and all his eyes open, meaning his third eye. And he even confirms by pointing at the middle of his forehead. This show seems to be one of those kind of shows that turns up as you go along. And while we're waiting on From, I'm definitely here for that type of story indeed. The little guy who plays Avery is doing a great job of portraying his character. He brought another vibe into the mix, and him being able to tell us how the employees feel is a dope touch. Him being able to make Luke choose that licorice from the vending machine sets us up to see him do something like that again. I think this kid is going to be a very important part to them getting up out of there because of how powerful he is. And him warging into that dog and Kalisha like Bran Stark, man, I tell you, Stephen King always has a way of bringing like the super-powered young buck to the scene. And they're always superpowered and ready to cook. And this makes me want to see some high-level telekinesis at work like we see with the telepaths. So there you have it, the recap of episode 3. My esoteric breakdown is coming right up. So if you like this video, go ahead and do all that dope YouTube stuff for me. And if you're not subbed, hopefully this will be the video that makes you do it. And if you're still watching the video, go ahead and click this video right here to watch my last esoteric breakdown, because this will be important to understanding of what I'm going to be saying in my next esoteric breakdown for episode 3. That's all for my video this evening. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.